Hi guys, I'm just going to go through some examples to help you with Chapter 3H if you were having difficulty with it. Now all you have to do is follow the steps in purple, and this should hopefully help us work out example 1. Now if you want to try and have a go of this before I write down each step, by all means press pause now and get your workbooks out and have a go. If you're still a bit unsure how to completely do this, just watch how I do it and then you can try on the next question. Okay, so looking at the purple steps up the top, the first step is asking us to write a fraction with the part amount as the numerator and the whole amount as the denominator. So first things first, we're going to write 14 on top and 20 down the bottom. This says 14 out of 20, which corresponds to the question, okay? Step number 2, we're going to multiply the fraction by 100 over 1. Multiply by 100 over 1. Great. Step 3, we're going to cancel or simplify by using the highest common factor. Now I'm going to start by simplifying the 20 and the 100, okay? So we need to find a number which divides evenly into both of these numbers. And just by looking at it, I can tell that 20 goes into 20 once, and 20 goes into 100 5 times. From here, so we don't get confused, I like to rewrite the equation. So we now have 14 over 1 times 5 over 1. Now by looking at these fractions, I can tell that we can no longer simplify them, so we can move on to step 4. Okay, so all step 4 involves is simply multiplying our fractions. So first things first, we need to multiply our numerators. So we need to multiply 14 by 5. So if we go 14 times by 5, 5 times 4 is 20, put the 2 up here, 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 70. Great, so we know that 70 is going to be on top of our final result. So when we're multiplying fractions, we also need to multiply the denominator by the denominator. And simply put, it's just 1 times 1, which we know is 1. So 1 goes on the bottom of our 70. Now, if we were to type 70 divided by 1 into our calculator, it would come out as plain old 70. Now, we're not quite finished there because we have to add our ever-important percent symbol. And that is our final answer. 14 out of 20 is equal to 70%. Alright, example 2. We're going to do exactly the same thing. We're just going to follow the purple steps, okay? So the question is asking us to express 60 as a percentage of 200. First step, write a fraction with the part amount, which is 60 in this case, as the numerator, so 60, and the whole amount, 200, as the denominator. From here we're going to multiply the fraction by 100 over 1. Okay, moving on to the third step now. I'll get out a different colour. We're going to cancel or simplify by using the highest common factor. Okay, so I'm going to look at the two diagonal numbers, 200 and 100. Okay, well I know that 100 goes into both of those, so I'm going to say that 100 goes into 100 once, and 100 goes into 200 twice. So if we rewrite the equation, it's going to look something like this. 60 over 2, because we simplified the 200, and 1 over 1. Alright, before I move on to step number 4, I can actually simplify this even further. I can say that 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 60 30 times. From there, I'm going to go up here and rewrite the equation. 30 over 1 times 1 over 1. Okay, so looking at this, I can't simplify it any further, so now I can move on to step number 4 and solve using multiplication for fractions. I'm going to times my numerator by my numerator, and I get 30 times 1 is 30. I'm then going to times my denominator by my denominator, which is 1 times 1, and I get 1. From there, I know that 30 over 1 is the same as just saying that it's 30, and let's not forget the percent symbol. So the initial question asked us to express 60 as a percentage of 200, which we have found to equal 30%. So in chapter 3H, we also had to find a certain percentage of a set quantity. So I've got the purple steps up again, which we're going to follow to try and work out what the answer to example 1, find 25% of 128 is going to be. So again, if you want to have a go first by yourself, press pause now. Otherwise, continue watching and you'll see how I go through the example. Alright, the first step, we're going to write the required percentage as a fraction. So let's look at the question. Find 25% of 128. Well, 25% is our percentage, so we need to write that as a fraction. We know that 25% is another word of saying 25 out of 100. Good, so that's our first step done. Moving on to the second step. Multiply by the other number over 1. Well, the other number is 128, so we need to multiply this fraction, the 25 over 100, by 128 over 1. Step 3, cancel or simplify using the highest common factor. Okay, I'm going to start by looking at the 100 and the 128. I know that they're both even numbers, so I'd know that 2 will definitely go into each of them. So I'm going to start with the number 2. I know that 2 goes into 150 times, and that 2 goes into 128 64 times. From there, I'll rewrite the equation so that it becomes 25 over 50 times 64 over 1. Now before I move on to step 4, I'm going to see if I can simplify it any further. I'm now going to focus my attention on the 25 over 50. I know that 25 goes into 50 twice, so I'm going to go 25 goes into 25 once, and 25 goes into 50 twice. Now I'll rewrite the equation so we can check to see if we need to simplify it any further. We now have 1 over 2 times 64 over 1. Okay, it turns out that I can simplify it one more time. Looking at the 2 and the 64, I know that they're both even numbers, so 2 will definitely go into both of those numbers. So 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 64 32 times. Right, we'll take the rest of our working out up here and rewrite our new equation, which is 1 over 1 times 32 over 1. Great, because we simplified it so much, this is going to be a nice easy one to work out. So we'll move on to step 4 and we'll solve using our multiplication of fractions. So we're going to times our numerators together, which gives us 1 times 32, which is 32. And then we're going to multiply our denominators together. 1 times 1, which gives us 1. We know that any number over 1 is just the numerator, so we know that it equals 32. Great, so we've now found that 25% of 128 is 32. Alright, for example 2, very similar question to the one before, just dealing with different values. So we'll follow the purple steps and hopefully we'll have no dramas finding what 155% of 60 is. Okay, so step 1, write the required percentage as a fraction. Alright, so the percentage is 155%. Now we know that percent stands for out of 100, so we're going to write 155 out of 100. Moving on to step 2, multiply by the other number over 1. Well, the other number is 60, so we're going to multiply by 60 over 1. Great, and we're already up to step 3. We're going to cancel or simplify using the highest common factor. Okay, let's look at the 100 and the 60. Okay, I'm thinking that the highest common factor might be 20. Let's check and find out. 20 goes into 100 5 times, and 20 goes into 60 3 times. Perfect, it goes in evenly, therefore we can use it. Let's rewrite the equation. 155 over 5 times 3 over 1. Alright, before moving on to step 4, we're going to check if we can simplify it any further. And just looking at that first fraction, the 155 over 5, I think that we can. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 155 31 times. Great, so if we rewrite our equation, it's going to look something like this. 31 over 1 times 3 over 1. Looking at these two new fractions, it doesn't look like we can simplify them any further, so we can move on to step 4, solving using multiplication of fractions. I'm going to do an arrow so we can move our working out up here. So, first things first, we're going to multiply our numerators. 31 times 3, well let's do that up here. 31 times 3. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. So we know that the numerator is going to be 93. Let's not forget about our denominators. We need to still times our denominators. So 1 times 1 equals 1. So 93 over 1, which is the same as saying 93. Therefore, we have found that 155% of 60 is 93. So this example was a little bit trickier because the percentage value was higher than 100. See, it was 155. So don't be tricked by that. You can still work it out using these same steps, even if the percentage is higher than 100%. Alright, so having watched and hopefully understood these examples I've given you, you'll now be able to go on with Chapter 3H in your textbooks.